Good afternoon and welcome to one more webinar from Progress India. This is a series of webinars that we typically do every month, every Thursday, almost second, third, fourth of Thursday from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. India Standard Time. We tend to cover both progress technologies and a generic developer based technology topics. As part of this webinar, we tend to give you what's happening latest greatest in the technology world, be it web, be it mobile. We tend to cover everything here. So today one of the topics that we're going to be doing is Node.js, a very popular execution environment. And using Node.js, we're going to see how to build web apps and APIs. So mind you, this is a very like a level 50 or a level 100 as we call it, which is like assuming you have heard of Node.js, but you want to quickly within an hour understand what this whole Node.js is all about. How do I get started with Node.js? What do I do? All those things. So this 1 hour, I'll try to make sure that I give you that stepping stone, that first step that you need to get up and going, and then maybe then you can go deep dive or do all your whatever you want to do, advanced things later. But this is a pure very simple, what is Node.js and then how do I get started. If you already know Node, if you're an advanced Node user, well, you will have to bear with us because we have never done Node as part of the webinars here. So we thought let's try to discuss something about Node. Even for me, it's been a learning curve with the Node. So that's the whole premise of this webinar. So it's building web apps building web apps and API with Node.js. And a little bit about me. My name is Lohit. I work as a technical evangelist here in Progress India. I'm also a Microsoft MVP, and then those are my coordinates. You can I'll put up my email ID at the end of the webinar. I'm available with Twitter at Kashyapa, so that's my Twitter handle. And then if you want to know more about me, that's my short URL. So the first question, right? So we should be answering this particular first question: what is Node.js, right? So I went to Wikipedia. That's become kind of an academia for anybody. So you go to Wikipedia and then try to search for the description. So I did the same thing. I went ahead and then looked at Wikipedia, and then whatever they had put up as a paragraph, I have put that into maybe a 4 bullet points here. So first and foremost, Node.js is an open source cross-platform JavaScript runtime environment. This is very important for anybody who wants to work with Node to understand that Node.js is not a language. Node.js is not a framework. Typically, if you ask anybody, a developer who's trying to learn, or even an advanced users, they typically tend to say that yeah, Node.js is either a framework or either a language, right? No, they're not both. Node.js is an open source cross-platform JavaScript runtime environment. That's important, the runtime environment, but you execute JavaScripts. That's what it is. So as I said, the second point is like, it's not a JavaScript framework. The runtime environment interprets your JavaScript using Google's V8 JavaScript engine. So what Google has done is, I'm pretty sure everybody knows about the Chrome browser. So within the Chrome browser, what happens is whenever a piece of JavaScript has to be executed, well, it's not the browser that does that. So they have an engine, or we call it as JVM, or JavaScript Virtual Machine, yeah, or also called as a JS engine. So if you're on Microsoft World, Edge has JavaScript Chakra engine. So that Chakra is the JavaScript engine which is responsible for interpreting the JavaScript and then executing that. So similarly on the Chrome, it's Google V8. And what the creator of Node.js, by the way, the creator of Node.js, his name is Ryan Dahl. And I think way back in 2009, he showcased Node.js, the execution environment, in the European JS conference, the JavaScript conference. And from then onwards, Node has gone, multifold. So Node is one of the popular, as they call it, as full stack, environment, or the vertical. You have people doing web apps on Node, APIs on Node, you name it. So that has become that much popular, right? So what Ryan did was with Node.js, he used the Google's V8 engine, and all the JavaScript in Node.js execution environment or the runtime environment is executed by Google V8. Whatever JavaScript you write, it's interpreted by the Google's V8. And one of the interesting things about Node.js is that it's event driven. So there's something called as event loop. So the loop keeps on happening there, and whatever you want to do, the Node.js framework or the environment, what it does is it puts it onto the loop. So in the next pass of the loop, your whatever task is being picked up, and then it's done in a non-blocking IO. So that is why Node is very popular, or Node is very fast also. It's done in a non-blocking IO. Although Node.js is a single threaded, but what it does is it keeps spinning off thread in the background for any of your tasks. So that's why we call it as event-driven non-blocking IO. So this, in a nutshell, is what Node.js is all about, right? Open source, cross-platform, JavaScript runtime environment. That is all you need to know. If somebody asks you, hey, what is Node.js? Well, it's an open source, cross-platform, JavaScript runtime environment. Why am I saying it as a cross-platform? Well, because Node.js as an environment can be run on Windows. So in fact, today in this webinar, I'm using a Windows machine, and I'm able to host Node.js on my Windows machine. So if you want to go production and you want to use Node.js as the stack, and you have a Windows operating system or Windows server, well, Node can be installed on Windows server. Or if you have a Linux server, in fact, when Rand Dahl came out with Node.js, the environment, he actually did it for Linux, so Linux server. So Node.js was initially available only on Linux in 2009, and then the company which is now backing up Node.js, called as Giant, they worked with Microsoft, and then now you have, from 2011 onwards, you have Node.js on Windows platform also. So that's why it's a cross-platform runtime environment now, and not a JavaScript framework. Keep this in mind. And Google V8 is the engine that Node.js uses for interpreting the JavaScript. So the next question may be like, okay, I understand what Node.js is, thank you. So now why should I use a Node.js, right? So, there are a couple of things why people want to, are very why Node.js is very popular, and then why certain people want to get on to Node.js and then start programming in Node.js, right? So why? Well, the biggest thing that I've seen, the one of the biggest motivation factors for people looking at Node.js is, I already know JavaScript, right? I've been doing client-side programming, and the moment you say client-side programming, JavaScript is what comes to your mind, right? You write JavaScript because the browser can only understand JavaScript. Browser does not understand Java. Browser does not understand C#. Browser does not understand PHP, JSP, nothing. It doesn't know anything except HTML, JavaScript, and CSS, right? If you want to do some programming on the browser, well, you have to write a JavaScript. So if you're coming from a client-side programming perspective, you probably know, pretty good JavaScript programming. Now, the moment we talk about Java or C# or PHP or JSP, well, these are all server-side languages. So you have what we call as a runtime. For example, I come from the C# world. So in order to execute a C# line of code, you need something called a CLR, Common Language Runtime, and you need this C# code to be compiled. And when you compile a C# code, an intermediate language is created, or intermediate code is created, and the common language runtime, or the CLR as we call it, it knows how to execute that intermediate language code and then give you the machine level code, and then that gets executed, right? So that's the server side of the things. So the moment you had to program something on the server, well, you needed to know the server-side languages like the C# or Java or PHP, whatever it is. But now with Node.js, it completely changes the equation, right? I want to do a server-side programming, but I already know JavaScript, so I can program the same JavaScript syntax, the same JavaScript semantics on the server too. So that is why Node has become one of the popular, frameworks. Sorry, again, I'm going back to the framework. It's not a framework, but the Node.js has become one of the popular stacks, as we call it, or the popular environment in order to do server-side and client-side. So there are concepts wherein isomorphic JavaScript, meaning the same JavaScript runs on the server side and also on the client side. So you generate the client side markup directly on the server and then just send that whatever JavaScript from the server directly to the client side. So that is the biggest thing. You already know JavaScript. Well, now you can start programming the server side things, and you have a anyway the client side you will always be programming in JavaScript. So now you can use the same skill to do the server side also. That is the biggest thing why somebody would go for Node.js. I am familiar. I will be familiar with the things in JavaScript, so I can easily program for the server side. Then it is fast. So because of its whole concept of event driven and then the non-blocking IO, it is a little fast. It's extremely fast in terms of how many number of requests or it can serve all those things, and then even the execution all those things. Then the third thing is tooling. So what Node.js environment has done is Node.js internally uses something called as common JS pattern. Basically what you do is you will start creating modules for your reusable business logics, right? So and then so that's the concept. That's like you create a module for a particular business logic. For example, logging. I want to log. So what we can do is we can create a module called as a logger, and then the module logger has maybe log info, log error, log warning. It depends on your requirement, but you have these methods available on this module, and then anywhere in your project, in your application, you want a logger, you just can use that module, right? That's the whole concept of modularity. I create that reusable logic as a module so that anybody within my application can start consuming it. So the whole concept of Node.js is also on the similar. So there are a bunch of modules available out of the box, the HTTP, the file system, you name it. It's already there in Node.js. Plus, what Node.js has done is it has created what we call as Node Package Manager, or NPM as it called as. So it is nothing but a registry of all the packages that people have written all over the world. Right, I'm in a need of a particular logic. For example, the classic example that I keep giving is there is a module, a package called as movement.js. I'm not sure how many of you have heard of it. If you are been working in JavaScript and you wanted the date formatting, like if I give you a date, I need the movement of the date. For example, a second ago, a minute ago, an hour ago, a day ago, a month ago, a year ago. I don't want to display the date, but rather I need the movement of that. Now, if you have to sit and write, well, think of all the whatever boundary conditions that you have to make sure you kind of suffice that requirement. So that means you have to sit, write, and it's going to take some time for you to perfect it, right? Maybe you just wanted to use it now immediately in your project, right? So now what somebody did was they created this fantastic library called as movement.js, and that's available on Node.js as a module. I just have to go to the npm or the registry and say, hey, Node Package Manager, I need that package called as movement.js. Can you install it? So that's it. You just say npm install that particular package name, and it's available to you in your project. And you just go and then use it. So there is, I'll show you the syntax, what is available. It's basically require that particular module, and then that's it. We start using that module all across. So that's the tooling. So there are, I'll just put thousands, but if you go to npm, let me go back to, let's say npmjs.com. I don't know how much package is there at this moment. I'm not sure how do you even figure out how many packages are there. Let's see if they have put it up here. Yeah, so the weekly package download, if you see, that means somebody is downloading something. So the weekly package download itself is, I don't know how to spell this. So this is unit tens 100, 1000 tens lakh, 10 lakh crore. I don't know, 13 crore packages being downloaded every week, right? That's how popular the NPM is, the registry is. There are a bunch of packages available. There is a package for that. That's how we say it. You whatever you want, it's there. You just have to go and then figure out. For example, I was talking about movement JS, right? So you can just say movement JS, and we should see the movement.js here. So this is the package. As you can see here, movement.js, that's the package that's available, and I can just readily use this. So that's another reason. I mean, that's one of the compelling reason. Like, the ecosystem is very much important whenever it comes to some environments, and Node.js is grown many folds because of all these npm packages, and then you can just use them. It's all open source and all those things. And then not only that, you can use the same JavaScript mechanisms to use it for connecting to your persistence layers. For example, there is a database called as MongoDB, or it's a any NoSQL databases can be easily used because you take a JavaScript object, you stringify that as a JSON string, and then you can directly store that in the NoSQL database. Basically, these NoSQL databases use document formats. So I can take a JSON string and then just store it. So that's a document. I can retrieve it back and then I can read it. Again, you are not learning any new proprietary language here. It's still the JavaScript, the same JavaScript that you know of. And that's another reason why people use Node.js. MongoDB is very, very transactionally it provides high transactions because it is not relational, rather it is using document based. So very highly scalable, and then transactionally very, very, very performant. So people use that. Real time. So I can use socket based programming wherein if somebody is inserting a record, I can real time go back and then tell all the connected clients that, hey, there is a new record added. That provides you, so Node provides you this socket based programming also. Basically use socket as a peer-to-peer communication, meaning I have hundreds of clients connected. The server wants to directly communicate with the client, 100 clients, so you just have a socket connection between the server and all the 100 clients, and server says, hey, I'm sending you a message. The clients react to the message that comes from the server, and then of course you have a client-side code written in such a way that if there is a message coming in, maybe you want to show an alert or something like that on the page. Yeah, you can take a look. You can do that. So that's what it is. And another biggest feature of Node.js is everything is a streaming data. So what you can do is you can take the standard output that Node.js has and pipe it pipe that particular standard output from a running process to a browser over a socket. So that's what it is. It streams. Every piece is a stream of data from the Node.js perspective, and then I can just take that stream and then say like, hey, I want to push it to the browser, using a socket. Yeah, you can do that. So these are some of the things that why people go for Node.js. You already know JavaScript. Node.js is fast because of the non-blocking IO mechanism, tooling, the Node package manager, and then I don't know, crores of packages available in the package manager. Then even for persistence, I can use the same JavaScript language that I know of. Plus Node.js allows me to do the real time, and then everything is streaming data. One thing to note here is HTTP is a first-class citizen in Node.js environment. It's not as if like you're doing separately, but no, it's you will be surprised to, or I don't know, if you have already done Node.js, you know this, but with just 2 lines of code, I can create a web server. So that's how flexible, or that's how easy Node.js as an environment is all about. So when we go to the demo, we're going to take a look at that. But yeah, that's what it is. It's basically as flexible, as simple as that. So 2 lines, 3 lines, and I have an HTTP server on with me. So now what I'm going to do is, so that's just a quick, I know purposefully I have not done all the other things like who is the creator, when was it done, all those things. I leave that to you guys as a homework, or kind of go back and then figure that out. So who created Node.js, and then how does it work and all those things. My main goal here is to make sure that give you just that initial step where how do you get started? What do you have to install in all those things? So if you go to nodejs.com, I believe that's what it is, or yeah, if you go to nodejs.com, that's where you will be able to, no, sorry, nodejs.org. Keep confusing the domain names. So as you can see here, there is, so it has already detected that I'm on a Windows x64 architecture. So it says, hey, do you want to use the 4.5.0 which has the long-term support, or the 6.6.0, the current version. So what I have done is, so this is something that I figured out a couple of years ago, or last year, whatever it is. So we on the Windows world are used to download an installer and execute the installer. Like, we have to go double click the installer. But one of my favorite speakers, Scott Hanselman, he kind of blocked some time ago saying like, chocolatey. So this is the, so this is called as chocolatey. And what it does is, as you can see here on the screen, you just have to say Choco install and then something, Choco upgrade Node.js, Choco, I don't know, whatever. So you do not have to go to the site where the installer is there and then download and then install it. No, you just have to install Chocolatey on your machine, on your Windows machine. I'm talking about, this is a Windows only. But if you're on Linux, I think you have apt-get, and you can go and then get the Node.js. But what I've done already is I've already installed Choco on my machine. So let me increase the font a little bit. Yeah, this should be fine. So yeah, so what I've done is I've already installed Chocolatey on my machine. So the command, what is happening? Yeah, so I just had to do Choco install Node.js, right? That's all I had to do. So in fact, if you go to chocolatey.org and then search for packages, and so here if you say Node.js, you will see that there is an entry for Node.js. Oh, there you go, Node.js 6.6.0. Or what you need to do, well, you just have to say Choco install Node.js.install. That's it. And Chocolatey will make sure it goes to nodejs.org, downloads the MSI, and then installs it on your machine. That is all I have done. Choco install nodejs.install. That is all I have done. So now, although I'm on a Windows machine, I've already now running Node on my machine. So if I say node -- version, you will see I'm running version 6.6.0. That's the latest version of Node. So in fact, I can get into Node's REPL mode, repeat, evaluate, program loop. So I can say var, or I can say console.log hello world, and there you go. It repeats hello world, right? So somebody is asking how can install at VS Code. Oh, well, if you already have a VS Code, that's the editor. So I'm going to come next to that. But what you need first is Node.js. You got to install Node.js first. VS Code, or the Visual Studio Code, is a cross-platform text editor from Microsoft, and that's free also. But that is just the text editor, but you need the environment first on your machine. So that's what you need to do. If you don't want to follow Chocolatey, well, all you need to do is go download this version 6.0. If you see here, it is actually an MSI, node-v 6.6.0-x64.msi. You will need to download that MSI, you'll need to execute that MSI and let it install. So with Chocolatey, what happens is, I don't have to worry about all those stuff, let me exit out. So I just have to say Choco install node.js.install. This is all I need to say, and Node.js as an environment will be installed on my desktop or laptop or wherever you are. And then to get into the Node, so now we are in a Node execution environment, and I can do anything. So where person is equal to Lohit, right? Oh, sorry, missed it. So there you go. And then now I can say console.log person, and I will say, it will say Lohit. So this is REPL, or repeat, evaluate, program loop. So you can keep on programming that. But this is not interesting, right? Let's try to do something different. So what I'm going to do is, I've already gone ahead to Visual Studio Code. So this is the website, code.visualstudio.com, and I've already downloaded the Visual Studio Code editor, the text editor I've already installed on my machine. So this is a fantastic cross-platform text editor, free, open source, runs everywhere, and it lets you program, as you can see, IntelliSense, debugging, Git extensions, whatever you want, everything inside Visual Studio Code. So what I'm going to do is I will go to my demos folder, and let's say I'm going to do a mkdir webby demo, and I will yeah, so I'm going to do this, and now all I need to do is start a Visual Studio Code here. I think I've clicked enter. Okay, now we go. So now we'll get the Visual Studio Code. As you can see here, this is the Visual Studio Code that's coming up. So let me try to increase the font size a little bit. Yeah, it should be good now. So as you can see here, I have an empty folder. There's nothing inside this thing, right? So what I can do is I can come in here and then say I want to create an app.js. So that's typically how you start with your Node.js programming. And now I can do whatever JavaScript that you are familiar with. So I can say console.log hello world from node world, right? Now how do I run it, right? I can always go back to the command line. Where I was so here. So now in order to run this, I just have to say node app.js and then take a look at the output that I got. So let me increase the font size a little bit. Yeah, let's keep it at 24. Yeah, there we go. So if you see here, I'm getting hello world from node world, right? So now if I want to make it some changes here, hello world from node world, and then I'm going to just put a 3 dots or maybe whatever, and then now, well, I will have to execute it again, and now I get the 3 dots, right? So now you're getting the idea. So node knows how to execute all this stuff. Well, you can do anything that you want. For example, I can say where person is equal to first, maybe let's say Lohit, and I can say last is equal to GN, and I can do console.log hello, and I can say person dot first plus space and then person dot last, right? So now with Visual Studio Code, there's one more interesting feature, that is I kept going back to the command prompt to execute node app.js, right? So Visual Studio Code already has a terminal inbuilt, the execution terminal. So all you need to do is just press the control backtick or the keyboard, the key where you have the tilde sign. So just say control that. Now notice I have a terminal coming up directly here, right? So I don't have to jump out of the Visual Studio Code. I can always say node app.js, and there we go. We have the hello Lohit GN coming in, right? So this whole thing about me executing node every time and again, it's going to be cumbersome. What I want is, well, I keep developing it, and the whatever the execution environment should automatically rerun my app.js. So for that, what you will need to do is go install something called as nodemon, or the node monitor as we call it. I like it because it's very simple. I just have to say nodemon app.js, and I've installed nodemon globally in my system. So now there you go. Notice here in the below, we have hello Lohit GN coming up, right? That's the output. Maybe I'm going to say G Nagaraj, and then I'll click on save, and notice here the nodemon automatically detects the changes that I have for my app.js, and then he's going to go and then execute as is. He's going to execute the app.js, he re-executes it, and then and I get my output, right? So that's what it is. Now everything, so I hope this is clear. So this is what the JavaScript execution environment is, but this is not the fun. The fun is somewhere else. Remember I talked about it uses a module system, right? So I don't want to do this console.log everywhere, But what I want to do is I want to create my own module called as logger. I'm going to call it as Lohit logger. So I will say gnl logger.js. So in the gnl logger.js, all I'm going to do is I'm going to say exports.info, and this is actually a function, and it's going to get the message, and then all I'm going to do is I will say console.log. Well, I'll need to do an info, and then I'm going to spit out the message that came out, right? And then I want to have error, and maybe here we go and then say error and a message, right? So this is my module. So why am I putting this exports? Well, if I don't put this exports, then the concept is very simple. This is like a public method now. Because I've put an exports, I can always do like uh, let's say print info. So, and then I will say message, and I can create a public, um, I'm going to just create print info is equal to, or I'll say var print info is equal to function, and then I'm going to get a message. And what we're going to do here is we're going to just say info message, right? So now what happens is this particular print info is not exposed to the outside world. So only info and error are exposed to the outside world. So how can I use it, right? So you can always come back here, and then we can say var logger is equal to require. So this is how you use it. So this require is like an import statement, and then I just have to say, hey, in the current directory there's gnl logger. Yeah, just get that guy. So now I can always say logger dot, notice the IntelliSense that Visual Studio Code is able to provide me. It has already figured out, like, logger is nothing but the gnl logger.js file, and inside that I have the error and info. So he's now giving me error and info, but you don't see the print info because that's a private. It's not at all exposed to outside world. The moment you put exports, that's when you pretty much have this concept of, oh, this is available to anybody in the you can export as many members as you want on the file, the module itself. So now I'm going to say info and first demo, right? And you have to keep looking at the bottom of my window. I cannot clear this guy now. If I clear it, I'm going to lose everything. So I'm going to just click on save, and it executes, and notice here I have got info first demo, right? So this, I just created my first Node.js module, as simple as that. Now you can always do anything that you want. So logger dot error, and you can say demo failure, right? And then I can do this, and notice here I have the info first demo, error demo fail. So we have got both of them are coming up, and so this is fine. But what I want to do is I want to print the formatted date time here. So for example, whenever we are printing, I'm going to remove, or yeah, we can go and then change this to, I'll just say print, and I will say info and then the message. So maybe in the print, what we will do is um, you know kind of a topic and then a message, right? So I will say topic and then plus a colon and then the message. But now what I want to do is I want to put a date time here. I want to put a date time, but in the, how do I want to put the date time? I want to put it like this. Typically, if you see the any logging thing, right? So it's going to say 2016 0922. So this is what I want, right? So notice here I'm getting that. So colon, and notice here I'm getting like 2016 0922, and then uh, failure. What happened? Topic and then message undefined. Yeah, demo fail. Oh yeah, so I need to provide, like, this is the error. Yeah, so I do this and then now I get it. So 2016, but I don't want this to be hard coded. I want the current date to be coming up here. So for that, what I can do is I can go back to my, I'm going to stop this terminal for a while now because I need to go and then install. So remember the package that I was talking about, there is a package called as movement.js, right? So let's go back to Node.js for a moment, sorry, npm for a moment. Where's my npm? Yeah, so here it is. And there is this movement.js, or we can go to movementjs.com. Yeah, so this is the movementjs.com. So how do you download? So they're giving you all the things. If you are on npm, so what you do is you just say npm install movement and then save it. So it's going to be in your package.json. So I think I don't have the package.json here, but that's okay. So all I'm doing is I'm saying npm install movement, right? That's all I've done. So now what npm is doing is it's going to the registry and then getting the movement.js package for me. So I got the movement.js package now. So let me see how do I use it. So you just have to do this. If you see here, I'm in the movement.js documentation. It says, hey, you know what? You just have to go and then call where movement require movement and then movement.format. So it takes the current date time and then formats it. So let's do that. So now I have the package. So I just have to say where movement is equal to require. Well, the name is movement, right? Or what is it? So let me check my node modules. Yeah, it's movement. So I just have to say movement. Now whenever I'm printing this, I can just come back here and then say like movement of dot format. So notice IntelliSense is coming up because of the Visual Studio Code. And now when I do this and then come back to this terminal here, let me say nodemon app.js. And there you go. So I now have 2016 09 22 12 40 blah blah blah, all those things, and I'm getting that. So maybe if you want to format it, so you can do this way. What I want is YYY MMDD, and then I believe this is HH colon MM colon SS. So let's see that. Yeah, there you go. So 2016 09 22 12:09 25. So 12 hour 9 minutes 25. So it's giving the UTC date. It's always good to store it in a UTC format so that you can do that. So now I just have to put a space here. And there we go. So it says info, then first demo, then error, then demo file. So we saw three concepts here. One is the node execution. Then we created our own module, a simple module, and we brought in the a third-party library into the node itself, right? So that's how you start working with it. So now let's do a completely different thing. So I'm going to keep the logger as is. I'm going to remove this, and what I will do is I will say where or I need I'll create a HTTP server now. So where HTTP is equal to require HTTP. So that HTTP is a first class citizen here. So all I need to do is HTTP dot. Okay, now notice here I do not get any what we call as IntelliSense, right? That's because Visual Studio Code requires every package to have what they call as a typings file. So what I've done is I already installed the typings, but I need to get the typings for Node. I've not yet done that. So what I will do is let's see if we have, yeah. So you can install the typings as at a global level. You can say typings npm install typings -g. So that means for your whole system the typings will be installed. Now I'm searching for any typings in the name of node. So I'm going to say typing search name, and notice here I have the dt or the the data, the typings for node available. So all I can do is I can now quickly say what is the syntax? The syntax, yeah, the syntax is in typings install dt, and I just have to say, I'm not going to remove global. I'll keep the particular this one. So I just have to say dt and then node, right? and I just have to do this. Now the typings gets installed for Node. Node as an external module, but it looks like, oh, okay. I need to have the global because Node is a global module now for me. So I just have to say typings install DT, and notice here now the typings has been installed. So if you're worried, I mean if you're wondering what happened, well, it just creates one JSON file called as typings.json. This is only required for Visual Studio Code, and then it says, hey, there is a typing available. Okay, there's a question, what missed what typing is, and is it a package like moment.js? Well, typings is nothing but as the name says, as everybody knows, JavaScript is a typeless language, right? So, but Visual Studio Code is built on something called as TypeScript, and then TypeScript is a superscript of JavaScript and tries to provide you the data types for your code. And even in Node, when I am doing like HTTP, well, HTTP is an object, right? So the object has certain properties, certain methods, all those things. So typings is nothing but a community-driven project, or you can say a package or a module where community has written all this type definition for any object that you can think of. For example, they have written the type definitions for the whole Node. Node has a lot of out-of-the-box module like HTTP, file system, everything. So now, because I have installed this thing called as typings.json, and then this is available at so and so location in my machine, uh, Visual Studio Code is smart enough to go and then see like, oh, he said HTTP. So now when I do it, hang on, so let me save this. Okay, so let's do this. So now let's try it again. So I'm going to say HTTP and then dot. What happened? I'm not getting the typing. So I believe I missed something. So let me just quickly figure that out. There's an instruction, very specific instruction as to what needs to be installed. Yeah, there you go. So we need global save. Yeah, I've done that. Typings install global save, and yeah, should be fine. So let's try this again, where HTTP is equal to require, and I will say HTTP. Now I can just come in and then say HTTP dot, well, interesting, I'm not getting my typings. Let me just figure this out. I'm gonna exit out of this Visual Studio Code. Sometimes caching issues do happen, so I'm gonna open it again, and I've got it. So the typings are all there. So the typings for, yeah, globals node index dot this one. So I have the, here it's all there. So let me go back to my app.js, and I'm gonna say http dot, interesting, I'm not getting, okay, so that's okay. So let's come back to this. So here what I'm doing is I'm creating a server. I already have an already built stuff. So let me try to see if I can show you guys here. So let me comment out a couple of stuff. Assume we are getting the HTTP. So if I say HTTP dot, and there we go. So this is what I was talking about. I don't know what happened in the other one, but this is also other project that I have where I've set up pre-hand, set up everything. Launcher JSON. So now because I've installed the typings, Visual Studio can now provide me a lot of intelligence here. So now if I say just do an HTTP dot, take a look at this, create client, create server, get method, all those things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, create me a server. For the server, it takes a callback. Remember, everything is asynchronous in Node.js world, meaning the main thread just spins off the task on another thread and then keeps going. So that's why it is able to respond very fast. So I get a request object, and then I get a response object, and I just have to say listen, and on which port. So I will say listen on 3001 port, right? I'll just do that, and then here on the response, what I can do is I can say hey, response.end hello world from Node.js web server, right? That is all is a web server for you. It will be able to do whatever you want. So for example, now all I need to do is, again, I'll open up the terminal and I will say nodemon app.js. I made a spelling mistake. And nodemon, all it does is it starts the it's doing a node app.js. So now it is running, and I know that I have hosted this on 3001. So all I need to do is I just have to create, open up my browser, go to localhost colon 3001. That's it. So now I'm going to get that particular whatever what did I say, 3001, not 30,001. And there we go. So we have, if you can see here, it says hello world from Node.js web server. So now I can always go back and then change it, hello world or welcome to Progress India webinar, right? I can save it, and the nodemon keeps running, and there you go, welcome to Progress India webinar. Now I just created a web server in no time. So let's try to quickly do some interesting stuff. I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to call it as data.csv, and in the data.csv I'm going to say key 1 comma value 1, and go next line, and then maybe create 3 things. So this, and this is also 2, and this is 2. So idea is, whenever you go ahead and then access this particular web server, it will respond with the data.csv file in a JSON format, right? So what I'm going to do is I will say var file system is equal to, or require file system. So I can just say, hey, require file system. Now once I've done that, here what I need to do is fs.read file. Notice you get everything. So the file is data.csv. I want this file to be read as utf-8. Is my thing correct? Yeah. And then I just have to say function. Remember, everything is asynchronous, so it's a callback now. Once it has finished reading, it's going to call this callback. So first thing is always an error, and then I get a data. And first thing that I want to do is I want to read all the lines that are there. So let's say response out, meaning whatever I need to send is an empty object. And then I can say data.split where lines is equal to data.split. What is it? So we have a carriage written. So I will say /r/n. So now I got all the lines. So lines dot for each. I'm going to get a single line, right? So what do we have? So we have, yeah, so we'll get each single line, and each line contains a comma separated value, right? So I'm going to say where parts is equal to line dot split by the comma, right? So now I have got the part. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say response out of parts of 0, I'm creating a key now, is equal to parts of 1. Oh, not there. Parts of 1. Right, so it keeps on adding whatever lines it is there, and then finally I can say, hey, response, I'm actually, so not this one, response dot write head. Oh, if you guys cannot see it, so let me try to increase the font a little bit. Let's stop this guy, and then I'm gonna go here. So I'm gonna say response dot write head, meaning I want to write a header. Basically it's a 200, but I'm gonna say the content type that I'm sending is actually a JSON. So it's gonna be application slash JSON, right? And then I need to send the data, right? We still haven't sent the data back. So I will say response dot end, meaning, yeah, that's it, go send everything to the client. So I have this response out. I need to convert this into a JSON string. So I will say JSON dot stringify this particular response out. That's it. So we got our and we close this here. So that's it. We got our simple stuff that we have done. So one more brace is missing. And now what happens is every time I hit this particular 3001, I'm going to go just return this CSV file as a JSON thing, right? So let me do a nodemon app.js, and it's running now. So I'm going to go back to here, and then I will say 3001, and there you go. So I just converted a CSV into key one whatever, just an idea to say, like, how easy it is to do everything. So now you got a little bit of kind of a idea as to what Node can help you do, right? We saw how you can create a package of your own. We saw how you can include a package from somebody. But if you notice here, there's no concept of a web application, right? This basically, I created a server. The server is listening at 3001, and anytime the server gets a request, well, this function is getting executed, and in this function we are always doing only one thing, and that is, hey, there is a CSV file, read it, and then give me a JSON data, convert that into JSON, then send it out. But that's not how a typical web application works, right? So a web application will have certain amount of JavaScript files, certain amount of style sheets, and an HTML file or whatever. Those kind of stuff will always be there. So next, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a look at. Oh, there's a question: how to deploy for business? Well, nothing. You just take this, and you will have to create some sort of service, or basically host the app.js on the node. The way I did nodemon app.js, so that means the server will always be executing my app.js, whether what the changes happen to the file or not, and then you just take it. Or you have certain amount of hosters available. So we here at Progress India, the Progress software, we have our own hosting platform called as Modulus, and it is very economical, and then catered towards this kind of situation where you have a node, you have a PHP or a Java, whatever it is. So you will be able to deploy, scale, and monitor your apps in the language of your choice. So we allow ASP.NET, we allow the Node.js, anything. Just bring in your Node.js and then give it to us, and then say, hey, I want you to host this Node.js based application. We will host it. We will charge you by the usage, by the bandwidth, or whatever it is, and then you just pay for it. So like that. So it's up to you, whichever way you want to go. Or you can set up your own Linux server or your own Windows server, take your core, and then start the Node.js there. That's what it is. So that's what I'm doing now here for the demo. I have a Windows machine, and I have installed the Node.js platform. I created the app.js, and I'm just calling app nodemon, and then saying, like, hey, keep running. Even if there's any changes in the app.js, I want you to restart the node application. So that's what it is doing. If I make any change, for example, let's say I just put a space and then clicked on it. So notice in the terminal, nodemon just restarted the node application, the current application that we have. So that's how it is. So we are almost at the 1 hour mark. So let me quickly go ahead and then show you some of the stuff. So there is a framework called as Express. So let me just go to their website. It's called as Express.js, or Express is what it is called as. This is the web framework built on top of Node.js. So I want to create certain pages, I want to have a JavaScript, I want to have a style sheet, all those things. So this application, or this framework, is what provides you a web framework on Node.js, a very minimalistic, and it's very opinionated, unopinionated way of doing things. So web applications, API, performance, and frameworks, all those things. So what I have already done is I have done this npm install express -- save. So I've already done this particular thing on my machine. So let me go back to here, and I will say mkdir webby express demo, and let me show you express -h. So as you can see, Express has been already installed on my machine. It has, I can always do a -v. It will show what version of Express I'm running. I'm running 4.13.4. I'm assuming that's the latest. And all you need to do is you just have to say Express. Oh, I think delete webby express demo. Yeah, so now I just have to say Express, and I will say webby express demo. And notice here what happened. It just now created the whole application for me, a whole web application for me. So let me jump into that particular folder. Yeah, and notice here it has said, hey, you need to do npm install. So that's because there are certain dependencies that the project will require. So I need to install that. So I'm going to say go ahead and then do the restoration. So what it is doing is it's going and then pulling down all the npm dependencies that the project has. I have the node on my machine or in the project, and then the project depends on Express. So we need to go download the Express related dependencies. Express depends on certain view engine called as Jade, or I think it's renamed to Pug now. So the view engine is responsible for providing you this concept of, hey, here is a view template, and then data bind data from my view things and all those stuff. So now it's all done. I'm going to open it up in a Visual Studio Code editor. What I'm going to do is first I'm going to run this so that you know what is the output. So now as you can see here, there are a bunch of things happening here. There's a public folder. And notice in the public folder you have the style sheets, you have the JavaScripts, you have the images, and then there is something called as routes, and then there is something called as views, and we also have the app.js, whatever app.js we have been seeing. And then notice here the way the code has been done. So it says require Express. Well, Express is a module. Although it is a web framework, it's a module within Node.js environment. So I'm saying, hey, I need the Node.js, the Express module. So I got that, and then it is getting a lot of stuff, and we have created the routes and then user routes. This is the API routing. So how do you create the web framework? All you need to do is you just have to say app is equal to Express, and that's it, and then let the Express app know where is your views. So all we are doing is we are taking the current executing directory, and then in front of that there is something called as views. So all the views are inside that particular folder. That's what we are saying. There's a question, do we have any limit on concurrent users? Well, I believe the limit on the concurrent users depends on your hardware. How much, the Node.js typically is very fast, and then it can, the throughput is very high, but ultimately the throughput comes first to your machine, and then the machine there is a listener, and then it passes it on to the Node.js web listener. So if you have exhausted your pool within your hardware, of course the rest of the requests will be like server unavailable or something like that. But yeah, so that is typically how it happens. Is Node.js single-threaded? Yes, it is single-threaded, but what it does is it doesn't block the thread at all. That's what I said in my initial slides. It's an event loop, and it's a non-blocking IO calls that it does. Majority of your server-side frameworks are IO blocking. They block your IOs. And that's why you cannot go beyond certain number of throughputs. But what Node.js does is it picks up the request, and then it just spins off another thread and says, hey, you know what, you take care of it, and then it goes back to serve other requests. So it's an event loop based mechanism, and it's a non-blocking IO mechanism that Node.js uses. So it is saying like, hey, Express, use this logger, use this body parser, use this cookie parser, and also there is a concept of serving static files. So all your CSS files, JavaScript files, images are all static files, so then they need to be served, right, statically. So we are telling Express that I want you to serve use the static thing, and the static assets are all available inside public folder. So you need to you need to tell Express which folder is it that contains all the static files, maybe your images, JavaScript, style sheets, and all this. That is all we have done. And then what we are doing is uh, and we are exporting this as an module. And if you take a look at my package.json, whenever this application starts, we have told like, node run this file. So this www is actually inside here in the bin folder. And what does this www contain? Well, it's nothing but basically I'm saying I need the app module. Once I got it, I'm saying I need the HTTP module. And then again, we are just creating a server. Notice here we are creating the server, and the server uses the app. App is nothing but the Express web framework, and that's it. Now it's listening on a particular port. If there is any error on the server, it's going to call this particular method. Whenever it's listening, it's going to call this particular method. If you see here on error, it just throws the error, and on listening, it just does this pipe port listening on so and so folder. So I mean port, right? So now when I go ahead and then do node app, or I can just say npm start. So that's what this package.json does, right? I can do this npm and then start. So now with Visual Studio, there's another interesting concept here. I do not have to, remember I said I do not have to jump out of the Visual Studio at all. So I just have to go to this debug window, and I can say, like, it says no configuration. So I can say, hey, I want to create a configuration. The configuration is that of the Node.js, and that's it. So now I get launch, attach to process, right? So I can say start, and I can look at the, so notice here it's now listening, and we have told that the let's go back to app.js, or not app.js. I think this is in www. So when we created the server, we have said that, hey, we want you to run at 3000, right? Now let me show you an interesting thing. With Visual Studio Code, this is possible. So I can come back here, then I can put a breakpoint here, right? I'll open up my okay, let me put it side by side, and I'm going to take this guy, and yeah, so now I have a breakpoint within Visual Studio, and on the right hand side I'm going to localhost colon 3000. I do this, and it did not break. Why? I am running in the debug mode. Launch. Okay, let's try this again. I'm going to say launch. Okay, there you go. So this happens at the launch itself. So now what happened was, I have created, I'm in a breakpoint now, and I can do whatever I want. And not only that, on the left hand side you can see the locals, the watch, everything that you want. Visual Studio Code will give you that, the call stack, everything. So now I can do the same function F10, the F10 will go through each line. So we are setting that, we are setting this, we are setting that, use this, use that, and then we have exported that, and it's going to go into wherever you want. It's going to the module.js. I can step out of this particular function, and there you go. I can do this. There we go. So this is where we were. This is the WW that's getting executed. So I can do this, F10, F10, then this the port. So notice here the port will be 3000, because we haven't set anything on the process. If the process we had set it, it would have done. Otherwise it's okay. So I created the server. It's listening on error, on listening. That's it. So we are done now. So I can do an F5, and our process is running now. And I can come back here and then do this, right? And there you go. On the right hand side, you do get, like, so we asked for styles.css, but it gave a 304 because nothing has changed. All those things. So where is the route? So the route is here. So the route definition is fairly simple. You just say, like, hey, whenever somebody goes into this root of my application, I want you to render this index template. So where is the template? It's inside the views folder. So index.jade. Jade is the templating engine. So as you can see here, extends layout. H1 is the title. P, welcome to this. So what I can do is, now I can go to the index, and I can say, like, instead of the express, I can say node webinar, right? I can do this. I can restart it, and let me remove the breakpoint. I'll start it, and then on the right hand side, when I refresh now, you will see node webinar. There you go. So it says welcome to Node webinar, right? And that's because I changed it. So the concept here is, there is a template, and you work with the template. There's a index.jade, and then if you have one more, let's assume, okay, let's do this. So I'm going to say /about, right? And I will say, hey, render about and about node webinar, just a simple stuff, just to prove the point, like, this is how the routing works. So let me stop this for a while, and then now I can pick up the same index.jade and then I can paste it here so that I get a index1.jade, rename this to about.jade, and then that's it. So here I can say about Node.js webinar, contact us at Lohit, or sorry, Nagaraj at progress.com. So just a simple stuff that I'm writing, and I will say, oh, cancel. So I'll save this, and again I will go ahead and then launch it. So notice what we created. We created now two routes. One is initial route where I can just go to the 3000. So I will go to node webinar, and then now I can say about, and there we go. So I got my about node webinar. So now I have two pages in my application. Now you get the idea. So now you can create the whole web application like this. Keep on adding whatever the routes you have, and then you can pretty much keep doing it like that. So now another aspects that we want to take a look at is, this is from a web application perspective, but what about an API? I want to create an API which can return me a JSON based data, right? So for that, this Express already provides something called as users.js. That's the route that has been created. And notice here the users.js, how do you execute is, let's go back to app.js for a moment, and notice here app.use, meaning if anybody comes to a browser and says localhost colon 3000 colon / users, I want you to execute, or I want you to use this users.js file, right? That's what this means. So let me open up the users.js. And what does it contain? Well, it contains the express, I need that, and it contains the router. So what is a router? Well, the router says router.get / request response next. So next is nothing but the whatever is the next in line for execution that will be passed, and then we just have to that is how the syntax is. And then I'm saying resource.send. Notice here I'm not saying resource.render. I don't want a template to be rendered. I want to pass a data back, right? So I can always do something like this, resource dot what is this guy? Okay, I've not installed the typing for, let me quickly get the typing for Express. So I'm going to go to command line here. Where was I? Okay, let's do it here. Copy, come back to terminal. Okay, so we are here, and then I will say typings, DT Express or static, all those things, and it has put up all those things. So let me assume, oh, this is not the place. This is the place, so I should have done it here. Okay, so I'm gonna do that again. I'm just bringing in the typing so that we can see what I get. So let's I'm getting confused where I was. Okay, I was here. So let's do this. I'm gonna go to open in command prompt. I'll go back here. Sorry about that, I got confused. There are so many projects that I opened up, so got confused a little bit about where I was. So now let's see if we are not getting this guy. So what is happening? Resource dot, okay, let's do this. So I'm gonna say send. Let's see if this works. So key colon key 1 colon value 1. So I'm going to do this. I will say do this. So this is like you're creating your API now. So this is an users API and I can go back to my browser here and I can say users, and there we go. So but what is happening is it is not sending it as a what do you call a JSON payload. So for that I believe we will have to do resource dot, yeah, let's try this, resource dot write head, and it is 200, and I'm gonna say content type colon application slash JSON. So this is just this one. You can always go to your database, get the data, and then do a resource dot send, and then push it to this particular thing. So you can do whatever things you. But I'm just showcasing a point that yeah, this is what it does. So I'm going to restart this guy, and it's listening now. So let's hope this is coming correctly. No, okay. So I have an error. So looks like this response.write head is not provided. Okay, let's do one thing. So we're going to put a breakpoint here, restart, and let's inspect. Okay, this is another interesting thing. So you can inspect that objects that are coming in because of the Visual Studio Code. So now when I do this, yeah, there we go. So we have the breakpoint hit on that particular line, and then I can take a look at what is this. This is actually a server response. And do I have, okay, let me take a look at this here. So what do I get? I get events, has body, header, connection, finish, locals, output, request, send date, socket. Yeah, the write head is there. Yeah, so what was it throwing error? So write head. So let's see what happens when we do that. Okay, let's do this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to prepare a JSON out, and that is nothing but key 1 is equal to value 1. And now what I will do is I will say this dot send JSON dot stringify JSON out. So let's see if this works. As I said, it's a learning curve for me too. I come from a web .NET background, so we play around a lot in the web API world. So I'm still learning the Node world. So let's check if 3000 is running. Yeah, so we have 3000. I mean, the website is running. So I'm going to say users, and I think we are still in the breakpoint. So I will say this, I'll say this, I'll say this. Oh, we still have an error. Can't set headers after they are, okay, that's what it was. You cannot set this error, sorry, the header. So let's see what happens if I just do json.send, and then let's see what happens. So we are here. So I'm going to do an F10. Yeah, it's now out, but there we go. So we are getting it, but it's not coming as a JSON. So I'll have to figure out what I know how to do the JSON string. But if you remember in the first example that we did, we were able to do a response.end, and then we were able to set the. But now we are in the Express land, and then in the Express there are certain documentation things that we will have to know how to make sure that we send back the thing. But the main point here is you can do router.get on that, and then you can also do other things like router dot get, and you can actually do a lot of things saying like user slash maybe an ID, right? You can always get the route parameters. A lot of things can be done like that. So this is a simple, as I said, today's idea was to just give you an example as to this. Yeah, this is how you create a web app, this is how you create an API. So this is an API for you. In fact, you're sending out, you created a separate users API. You may have an n number of API namespaces, right? Users, maybe customers, orders. Yeah, this is how you do it. Go to create an Express application, go to app.js, and in the app.js all you need to do is you just have to say app.use. So this one uses the web routes, and I've created another routing for just my APIs. Users is what I've created, and you can keep on adding any number you want. Like for example, you can do customers, orders, whatever. So now this is a web route, meaning index about all those stuff, and this is API routes, users, customers, etc. You get the point. So that is all it requires. So the Express is a very popular framework that Node.js has, and then people use this to create this web application using Node.js, because Node.js, as I told you earlier, is just an execution environment or a runtime environment. It doesn't provide, it is not a framework per se. So people have created this framework called as Express. It provides you the concept of web applications. It provides you the concept of API. So depending on your needs, if you just need in web application, which does a lot of things like data in, data out, and all those stuff. I ran out of time in showcasing data connectivity, so I actually have installed MongoDB, and on the MongoDB, as you can see here, I had created a Northwind database. The connectivity to the Northwind, this particular database is fairly simple. So let me show you in another, maybe an example. Where are we? Yeah, so here. So I'm going to just remove this guy, and notice here, to connecting to MongoDB is as simple as installing a npm package called as mongoose, and you just do this connect, right? Currently in my system, the MongoDB is running at localhost and this port 27017, and then I have created a database called as Northwind, and then you just say where mongoose require mongoose.connect to this database, and this is how you create, you get a particular table. So I have a table called as products, and I can do products.find, and here, and let me show you this, where product count is equal to items.length, and I can say console.log products, items of 0 dot product name. So as you can see here, so this is coming. So now if I run this guy, and notice here the Node.js is running, and there we go. So we got I don't know if you guys can see this, but there is this output which says chai, right? So let me go ahead and then do something. So what is it? So I will say var first prod name is equal to items of 0 dot product name, right? And then I'm going to output this guy, right? And then I'm going to put a breakpoint here and then see what happens. So let's kill this guy, and I will say nodemon app.js. So where are we here? Yeah, we are here. So I'm going to say nodemon.js, and then we should hit the breakpoint. No, it's not hitting the, oh, I did not save it. Well, the breakpoint is not getting hit, so I think I know what is happening. The terminal is being run from outside, so he won't be able to break there. So I will just do it like this, come back here, and then I will say launch. Not attach. No, I don't want attach. I want launch. And there we go. So we have hit the breakpoint. Now it's going to be interesting now. So I'm going to put a breakpoint inside this guy, because this is again all the callbacks. And let's see what is happening. I said I want mongoose, so it's got the mongoose. I'm saying connect to mongoose, so it has already connected that. And I said I want this product, and then I'm doing a find now. So I'm going to do this run. So notice here we came inside the callback items length. I have to execute this guy. So items length is actually 77. There are 77 items in my database, and I can do this first product name, and there we go. So we have chai, right? So with Visual Studio Code, it's so simple, easy to work with Node.js for debugging, for running, you name it. If you're not been using Visual Studio Code for the Node.js, you should pay attention to Visual Studio Code. A bunch of things are available. I like the fact that it brings the same Visual Studio concepts here. I can do right click and then say for example, I can do this and then say go to definition. He's going to go figure out, a lot of things can be done, and then the debugging feature is fantastic. So that's what it is. So that is all I had today for the webinar. Just a, kind of a, as I said, so Express.js, that's what we saw. And then MongoDB and Mongoose. Yeah, I did not have time to go through that, but I hope you get the idea as to how you can connect and work with it. So maybe I'll see what I can do in next webinars. So now that's my coordinate. If you have more information or if you need more information, you can always touch base with me, Nagaraj at progress.com, or on Twitter as Kashyapa. I'm going to stop the webinar recording now and then get on to the Q&A. So thank you very much for those of you who have attended the webinar live, and then if you're watching this on demand.